Meat eating. I get it. Completely understand it. With meat, if you eat meat, you can cover a lot of nutrition very quickly and very easily. And might I say, I don't want to use the word ignorantly, but you don't really have to pay as much attention to, covering all bases nutritionally as what you would with a vegetarian or a vegan diet. So I do completely understand why people fall into meat eating or continue meat eating. We definitely needed it for our survival. As humans, when we were more hunter-gatherers, it was something that would have been crucial for some cultures around the world. So I understand why it was used. But ultimately, in this day and age, if you aren't using it for survival and if you do not require it, like if you don't live in some remote society like in the ice where you must live off of fish or something like that, it's immoral, unfortunately, because in this day and age, you can provide your body with everything that it needs on an ethical vegan, well, maybe not, we shouldn't say vegan because vegan is a little bit harder and you really need to pay attention. So I probably wouldn't recommend that for the majority of you, even though it is maybe slightly a little bit more ethical, but you can still source ethical eggs and ethical milk and stuff of that nature. So I would recommend for the majority, at least vegetarianism is the most ethical choice. If you can do veganism, then cool, but do definitely make sure you are getting everything that your body requires, because it's even harder to fill your body with everything that it needs on a vegan diet. It is still possible, don't get me wrong, easily possible. You just need to dial in a little bit more and pay a little bit more attention. But for most people, if you just go straight from meat eating directly into a vegan diet, you're probably going to miss some stuff. But let's dive into why eating meat is immoral. Firstly, you are killing a being and you are ending its life cycle early so that you can absorb it, basically. It makes sense, as I said before, in a hunter-gatherer society, completely, because if you need it for survival, you need it for survival. That's what it is. If it's unfortunately between your family and an animal, it's probably going to be the animal that has to suffer. But in this day and age where animals are completely bred for slaughter, and we have 80 billion land animals dead per year. If you include fish, it's something like 1 trillion, somewhere between 1 to 2 trillion animals dead per year for human consumption. 25% of that doesn't even reach the plate of humans. 25% of it is just thrown out the window. So by supporting the meat industry and the fish industry, you're supporting that. You're supporting beings being killed for no reason, and that's a lot of beings. It's like 250 billion beings, sorry. And that is just insanely immoral. Obviously, that's a little bit more systemic, but it's you play a role in that if you do eat meat, because you do support that entire system. With every dollar you spend, you support that system in which you give your money to. And just the methods in which it's done, they try and say that it's completely moral, and we try and, stun them or make sure that they feel it's the most little amount of pain as possible. But it's like, would you want that for yourself? Would you say that it's still moral if it was for humans? Would you still say it was moral if we decided, or actually if aliens came along and said, hey, we're just going to raise you until you're about 18 and then we'll kill you very justly, and there'll be little harm. We'll just stun you in the head and then we'll slit your throat. Is that okay? And if we had the anatomy of cows, for example, if they get stunned in the head, some scientists did some research on pain that goes through their brain as they're getting stunned in the head, and sometimes it's absolutely horrific. Like sometimes they don't get fully stunned, they only get half stunned, so they feel everything that goes on. And when they drain the blood of a cow, they're still conscious and they're still moving around, and that happens more often than not, so you're playing a role in that. It's just a huge amount of suffering that you're playing a role in. But I understand, like, why you would have eaten meat to this point. Like, it is, I'm not gonna lie or say that it isn't highly nutritious, because it is highly nutritious. It's just not very spiritually healthy overall to engage in something like that. And even physically, it's not that healthy, depending, there's layers to it, of course. I'll go through it. So if you're eating just like animals that were locked in small confined spaces, pumped with hormones, so they were growing quicker so they could be killed quicker, they eat absolute shit food like GMO food. It's like what the food that's gone into their body and their water source and all stuff like of that nature, you're going to ingest also. And then you couple that with the fear that they feel just before they die. Fear is just pumped through their body. It's going to have an effect on you and your consciousness overall. So not only is it bad for these animals that are suffering, it can also be bad for you long term. Like, you'll hit your nutrition markers, but like over long term, this stuff will build up in your body too, and it will actually affect you negatively too. And then the counter argument to that is like, oh yeah, we'll just get grass fed and organic animals, but still, the ones that label themselves as organic, the water sources that they have aren't always pure. Like, they're not going to get pure distilled water. They're going to get some fluoride water or chlorinated water or some bore water. In some cases, it's pretty rare that they'll actually get like a proper clear water source on Earth today, because a lot of our water sources have been dirtied through just the stage of evolution that humanity is at right now with our industrialization across the globe. And the vaccines that they take, I know it's not an obvious large amount that you'll be intaking from an animal getting a vaccine, but there's still heavy metals within the vaccines and amongst other things. So it's like every animal that you eat, you're kind of rolling the dice. Like, are you going to be eating any section of the animal in which heavy metals might have been stored in their body? And that will also add up over time. And as I said before, you're still going to get the fear. You're still going to be ingesting fear of an animal before they were slaughtered. So all of those things weighed in. You can refine it and you can make it a little bit better, but it's still going to impact you long term. And then if you want to go into the spiritual side of things, it's just like, do you really think that engaging in enabling another being's suffering is not going to impact you spiritually? In the sense of, if I do believe that there's life after this, but if you don't, just walk with me down this train of thought. If there is life after Earth, in what way would you think that it would be okay for you to ingest and to consume the suffering of another being and have absolutely no consequence in the next life? It just doesn't really make sense, because if there were heavenly realms and you've just lived a life where you were just, for lack of a better word, ignorantly consuming and engaging in the death of 80 billion to 1 trillion to 2 trillion animals per year, and you're contributing to that, and you indirectly contributing to the suffering of another being, it's like, do you really think that you'll have access to higher planes of existence? Do you really think that you'll have access to higher states of being? I think there might be a little bit of karmic retribution that you'll have to go through in order to face what you are actually engaging in, unfortunately. And if you're somebody who just believes that nothing happens, well, then you're still engaging in the suffering of another being. So it's like, is that really the person that you want to be? Do you really want to prioritize an easier path to health over the suffering and killing of another being? And then there's the argument where people use, well, like, oh, well, plants have feelings too, but not to the same extent, nowhere near to the same extent of level of consciousness that animals have. And yeah, unfortunately, as we are in the material plane, beings will die as we're growing food. Like, even in growing vegetables, for example, if you have a larger amount of vegetables in one space and you're trying to harvest them, you might kill a rodent or you might kill insects or something of that nature. And people like to use that argument also for vegans or vegetarians. They say, well, actually, you cause more livestock deaths. And that's a little bit of a lie, because a lot of the food that goes to livestock still today is harvested in the same way. So if you really wanted to lessen your suffering, you would lessen your meat eating, because animals eat way more than humans, because there's just way more bread, and they're just constantly going through the cycle again and again. Bread fed death, bread fed death. So, and they're fed a lot of the same foods that is harvested, and they cause a lot of these crop deaths, even more so, of killing of rodents and insects too. So if the goal is to lessen your suffering, it is definitely a vegetarian or a vegan diet, 100%. This whole argument that people believe that a vegan diet causes more suffering is or a vegetarian diet causes more suffering, it just isn't based in reality, unfortunately. But yes, they're not wrong. Unfortunately, you do still cause suffering. Like, there will still be insect deaths and there will still be rodent deaths here and there by vegetables. So if you want to take it to the next level and be even more extreme in your morality, then you have to grow your own food, and you have to, find a water source which you can just live off of and live off of that. But then even that, you might not hit all of your nutritional markers. So it is a bit of a catch-22. We're never going to be perfect here in the material realm, but the goal is to move closer and closer, or as close as we possibly can, to lessening our output as suffering as a species, as a whole, I do believe. I think the state of the world that we live in today is a direct reflection of how we treat the other beings on planet Earth. I don't think that we would be in this chaotic, evil, vile state that we are currently in, with wars and, disgusting things going on under the surface, if we were all engaging in or trying to output as little suffering as possible. So yeah, that's just my whole viewpoint on it. It's like, I understand that meat is very nutritious, but like, still long term, it's still going to impact you negatively in the world that we are today. The only way that it wouldn't is if you were living in a hunter-gatherer society where that animal completely lived off the land and completely ate whatever it needed and was providing its body with all of it needed. But that's just not the reality in modernity, unfortunately. A lot of them are pumped with GMOs and hormones and stuff of that nature. And even if they're not, the water source is still a little bit impure, and the vaccines, and also the fear that you're ingesting, it all combines. And it's gonna build up, unfortunately, in your system. So yeah, that's my whole viewpoint on this meat eating and the morality and the ethics of it. I would definitely advise you to move away from that and move towards understanding how you can provide your body with all it needs with a vegetarian or a vegan diet, if you want to go extremely into it. But I recommend, for the majority of people, a vegetarian diet. And it's not like you can't, like, if you're worried about like building muscle or getting testosterone or something like that, or hitting your markers, you can still hit all of that. Trust me, it is definitely 100% possible to still hit it on a vegetarian or a vegan diet. It just requires a little bit more finesse and a little bit more planning to hit that level. But it is 100% possible now. We've proven it. There are various vegan bodybuilders and strongmen and stuff of that nature too, so it's not impossible. It's just an easier path to eat meat, but is the easier path the right one, is the question.